Kangana Ranaut, BJP MP, has made a controversial statement about the farmers' protest. We know that the farmers' protest that started in August 2020 ended in December 2021. It was over a year-long drawn farmers' protest where the farmers were basically asking for a minimum support price for their crops. They were against the new farm laws that the government was bringing in, and the government was forced to take the laws back. Now, what Kangana says is, if that protest was allowed to get out of hand, we would have had a Bangladesh-like situation. Probably trying to say that we would have had a situation where the leader of the country would have to flee. And she says that only reason that did not happen is because we have a very decisive, a very strong leadership, that the situation did not deteriorate, not referring to the fact or not trying to get into the fact that this is one of those protests that actually forced the government to take 3 reform bills, 3 farm laws back.
तो जो बांग्लादेश में हुआ ना, वो यहाँ होते हुए भी देर नहीं लगनी थी अगर हमारे इतने शीर्ष नेतृत्व जो हमारे इतने सशक्त नहीं होते। यहाँ पे जो फार्मर्स प्रोटेस्ट हुए, वहाँ पे लाशें लटकी थी, वहाँ पे रेप हो रहे थे, और जब वो किसानों के हितकारी बिल जो वापस लिए गए थे तो पूरा देश जो है वो चौंक गया था। और वो किसान आज भी वहां बैठे हुए, उन्होंने कभी सोचा ही नहीं ये बिल वापस होगा। वो बड़ी लंबी प्लानिंग थी जैसे बांग्लादेश में हुई है। तो इस तरह के षड्यंत्र, और आपको क्या लगता है किसानों, चाइना, अमेरिका, इस तरह की जो विदेशी जो शक्तियां हैं वो यहाँ काम कर रही हैं, और ये फिल्मी लोग हैं, इनको लगता है कि इनकी दुकान चलती रहेगी अगर देश चाहे जाए भाड़ में। ऐसा नहीं होता है। देश अगर भाड़ में जाएगा तो आप भी साथ में भाड़ में जाएंगे। ये बात जो है इनको रोज रिमाइंड करानी चाहिए। पर खैर, जितनी इनकी बुद्धि है उतनी इनकी करतूतें भी हैं।
So it is actually one of the biggest examples of how democracy works in this country, and many of us actually thought that it's a great moment in Indian history where people's power presided over the government and actually got their demands fulfilled. That did not happen in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, again, I think Kangana needs to check her facts, and I think her understanding of what happened in Bangladesh is very rudimentary, because this public anger over Sheikh Hasina was building up over years, primarily because the voters there were disenfranchised. Sheikh Hasina did not allow people to vote. She sort of appropriated power. And then came the issues of inflation, job loss, and then came the issue of a quota that she was imposing, which of course she was willing to take back. But the anger had spilled over, and the refusal of Sheikh Hasina to bow before her people, refusal to tender an apology for the hundreds of students who were killed, those killings angered people to the extent that there was a spillover on the streets of thousands and thousands of protesters, where the army chief, of course, advised her to leave the country in order to avoid any untoward incident. That can be compared with the farmers' protest by any stretch of imagination. Here was a legitimate protest for, like I said, the minimum support price, which the farmers were, of course, extremely concerned about, that their share of the profit, their share of the revenue should not go to the big corporates. They should not be profiteering at their expense. So I don't understand where Kangana found parallels to draw. But the worrisome part here was her calling that there are rapists and murderers. To use those terms for the farmers. Now, farmers, remember, are revered in this country. They're called Annadata. To say that there were bodies hanging and that there were raped women, it's an exaggeration of the worst kind. And Kangana should have had better sense to, refrain from using such statements. But she, of course, goes to that extent. And the third thing that she says is that the foreign hand in these protests. Now, this is, again, extremely controversial and extremely sensitive, because obviously there was anger among the farmers from Punjab and Haryana for those who tried to call them Khalistani elements. And this is once again what Kangana is trying to insinuate, that there were foreign hand. There's US and China behind it. So she has really opened a can of worms in this. And, well, there was an incident in the Chandigarh airport where somebody who felt very deeply humiliated went ahead and assaulted Kangana because she sort of delegitimized the protesters at that time as well by saying that they are shedding crocodile tears And here was a young lady whose grandmother was sitting there for days on end. Remember, the farmers were sitting there through the harshest of weather, through the really biting cold that they weathered during those protests. And it was heartbreaking, actually, to see some of them literally sitting over there, have entirely, with families, etc., not budging, because there was a lot at stake for them. So to not understand that sentiment and to make these statements had actually cost her that humiliation. Not that we condone an assault on anyone at any place, but I'm saying, you carry on with that tirade, there will be more price to pay. So the BJP has distanced itself from this entire statement, saying Kangana is not authorized to make these statements. But I think that would not be enough. There should be an apology coming from Kangana Ranaut saying that I take back my statement. Nothing less than that is acceptable.